So we're on Kuf Chaf Gimel Amid Beis. We're going to start toward the bottom. We're going to start from 5 lines from the bottom, Haniach Lahem. But I'm just going to remind you that this is really the analysis of the Brisa, which starts 2 lines from the bottom of the narrow lines. Tanur Rabbanan, Habachar Neitel Pishnayim Bezrei B'Lechaim B'Kev B'Doshin B'Shvach Sheshvachu Nechasam L'Acha Misavian. A Bachar gets double, gets 2 chalakim from Shvach, from the increase in value of Nechasim, of assets that are part of the estate of the mace that accrued after the death of the father. And then we said, if someone left by his father, if his father left over, we're just reviewing the brisa that the Gemara is going to analyze. This is still a review from last time, since we didn't learn yesterday. So the brisa says, if father left the mace, the father left over a cow that was on Kufchav Gimel Amaves, that was rented out, or if it was grazing on its own, that's an example of Nechasam La'achamisa Savian. But if it was done by the Yarshim, if the Yarshim expended effort into the creation of this extra wealth, that's not considered to be a natural outgrowth of the estate, and therefore the Bechar does not get Pishnayim of that. Okay, so now let's get to where we're up to. So this is 5 lines from the bottom. In the middle of the line, so the example we gave of what kind of growth of the estate is considered to be a natural growth that the Bechar gets double of it, was if the father left over a cow that was rented out, or if it was grazing in the fields on its own, the Yolda, and then that cow gave birth, the calf is Bechar Noitel Ba Pishnayim. The Bechar gets double. Correct the Gemara. Hashnu Muchrachas Umuskeres, the Labashusa Demara, the 2 Kaima, Amid Shakel. Gemara asks, what is the necessity of giving these 2 cases? We said both if a cow was rented out and if the cow was just grazing on its own. So we said if it gives birth, then the Bechar, the Vlad, the calf, is going to be considered a natural outgrowth of the estate, and the Bechar is going to get double. So Gemara says, once you told me that something that's rented out gives birth, where it's not within the Rishus, it's not physically in the Rishus of the estate, it's now under someone else's dominion. We say that the Bechar gets Pishnayim. Ba'afa mibaya, we have to say where it's grazing on its own, it's fully in the estate, and it's just on its own, it's part of the estate, and it gave birth. So what is the necessity of telling you this second case? So it wants to tell you that the case of where it's rented out is similar to the case of where it's grazing in the field. Just like when it's grazing in the field, there's no expenditures, there's no expenses involved in having the animal eat. It just eats from what's in the pasture, in the public fields. And there's no necessity for anyone to feed it. So the case where it's rented out, it also has to be that there's no expenses to the estate. The estate is not providing the food for this animal. And there's no necessity for them to put any, let's say there's 10 brothers and they have a deal where they rent out, let's say they rent out cars. Let's if we make it cars instead of instead of animals. So if you rent out cars, you rent it for the month, and the person who takes it has got to pay the insurance, and they have to pay for the gas. So then it's purely it's not a good example because there's no vlad. But I'm saying the cow, but if the cow is being rented out and the person who's renting it is responsible for whatever cost of maintaining it, and then it gives birth, so it's looked at as a pure revach to the estate, and it's a natural outgrowth. Nothing would have to be invested, and it came out on its own, so it's part of the estate. But if the estate, which includes the other brothers, are putting in their own investment to produce this vlad, where they have to feed the animal, and they got to get a vet for it. So then, when it gives birth, the brother who's a bachar can't say, "I get double on this," because they have already invested to produce this additional vlad, this additional calf, and therefore it's not considered to be a natural outgrowth of the estate, but rather it's something that they have somewhat produced, and therefore it's divided equally. The bachar doesn't get an extra portion. So we're going to see. I'm just going to set it up in your head the way I would look at it. There's different types. We're going to see later on in the Gemara there are different levels of something growing automatically. We're going to see there are things that are produced that are not at all connected to the original thing that was there. And then you have things where, like we say over here, and this is the example that we're going to see. There's a machlekes about what the din is, and then there's going to be cases where the thing that comes out is more connected. It's just an additional growth. Like if you have something that's already there, a fruit, and the fruit gets bigger, that's going to be the most natural outgrowth, and there's going to be the most reason to say that a bachar will get double of it. Saktamar, money. So who is this man the Amar? And the Rashba makes clear this is not going back on the specific case, the example that we gave, but we're going back on the din that we said that if the assets increased after the death of the father, the bachar gets double. So who is this man the Amar who holds like this? As we're going to see, there's a Tanakama who disagrees. So tomorrow Rebbe, this is Rebbe, the Tanya, like we learned in the Brisa. The Tanakam of this Brisa does not hold like the Brisa that we just said, that we quoted, that we learned in the middle of Kufchav Gimel, that says that a Bechar does get double from the Chasim, from the increase in the Chasim. And this, even in this specific case of a Para Muchrachas that will get out of Vlad. But Rebbe Aimer, so that Tana, the Tanakam of this Brisa disagrees with the Tana that we have been quoting till now, and we've been explaining. But Rebbe Aimer Ani, I say, I say no. A Bechar does get double from the increase in assets after the death of the father. But not, Rebbe will concede, just like we gave the example in our brisa, if it was something that was produced through the efforts of the estate or from the other brothers, meaning b'shvach sheshvichu yisaimim, as opposed to shvach sheshavchu nechasim. If it came from the efforts of the other yisaimim that they had to invest into it, then the bechar will not get pishnai. If the father died and he left over a star, a contract, a note saying that he's owed money, the bechar gets double from that. If you collect that money before the division of the estate, the bechar gets double. If on the other hand, there's a shtar chayiv saying that the father owed money, bechar noisim pishnayim. The bechar has to pay double. It means he can't get it both ways. He can't say, listen, I'm entitled to double because I'm a Bukhar, but I only have to pay my single portion of the debts. And this is an outgrowth of the fact that he's entitled to double of the money that's owed to the father. Together with that comes that his portion of the estate will be reduced by double the portion of the debts. And if he says, listen, I'm not interested in this. I don't want to get double of the debts. My father, I happen to know, is underwater. So I don't want to take my double portion of debts because I'm going to end up underneath. I'm going to end up owing money. So I'm not taking a double portion of his Yerusha, and I don't want a double portion of his debts. Rishai. He's allowed to do so. Okay. My Tamai Durabana. So Gemara is going back to the first part that we said. We said there was a machlokes, right? The Tanakama of this brisa said that a Bechar does not get double in the increase in assets that occurs naturally. Like, for example, if a para that was in the estate gave birth, the Bechar does not get double in that. So what's the reason? My Tamai Duraban, Amakra, losses like Pishnayim. The Torah says in the description of where Bechar gets double, it says, Ki es Bechar ben hasnua yakir. You have to give the Bechar, even though he's despised, you have to recognize him, losses lepishnayim, to give him double. So we use a lashon of matana. Losses means losses, to give. Matana kari rachman. The matana calls it a gift. Ma matana adamachi aliyade. Just like when someone gives someone a matana, he says, next week is your birthday. I'm giving you $100 for your birthday. And then the birthday comes and Shmerel does not show up with the $100. It's too bad. The birthday boy is out of luck. Just because you said you're giving it doesn't, until it gets to your hand, the matana is meaningless. Similarly, until the chelik b'chayra gets to the hand of the father, until the father actually has it, the fact that it increases after the death is not considered to be part of the estate. Just like a matana is not a matana until it's given, so too, a increase in the value of an estate is not part of the bechara until it actually arrives. And once it arrives, that's too late. That's after he already got his chelik of his double. So that's the Tanakama. For Rabbi who disagreed says, Amakra Pishnai. Torah says he gets double. Makash chelik b'chayra lechelik pashut. It says that the amount that the bechar gets is similar to the chelik that the other brothers get. Ma chelik pashut afagav deleimatli yave. Just like we don't say that what comes into the state after the death of the father is not distributed to the other brothers. Of course it does. We say it becomes hefker. No, certainly the brothers are entitled to it. So since we're makish, the chelik of the bechar to the chelik that the other brothers get, just like the other brothers have an entitlement to what has increased after the death of the father, so too will the bechar's chelik will also be increased double for the af chelik bechar avagav l'yamatliyat. Just excuse me for a second. I'm going to turn on the air conditioner. Yeah. So now we have the explanation of the machlekes Rabbi and the Chacham. Right? We had our brisa on Kufchav Gimel that said that a bechar gets double from the increase in value of nechasim, that after the death of the father, he gets his entitlement to get a double portion includes that which the estate increased in value. For example, if they had a para and it gave birth, he gets double from that para. And now we brought a brisa where their chachamim disagreed. They said, no, they learned it out from losses. It's similar to a matana. It's only what was in the estate when the father died, but what increases afterwards is divided equally to the Bechar and the other brothers. He doesn't get extra on that. Rebbe says, no, we learn out from Pishnayim that his chelik is hukish. It's compared, it's similar to the chelik of the other brothers. And just like they're entitled to get a chelik of what the estate increased, the Bechar gets a double chelik in that. What do the Rabbanan do with this pasuk of Pishnayim, that it's makish the chelik of the chayra to the chelik of the pashat? He says, no, that's not coming to tell you that the Rabbanan say it's not coming to tell you that the Bechar gets double. Well, it's coming to tell you in what accrues to what the estate increases after the father's death, but rather it's coming to tell you that the Bechar, when he gets double, is entitled to get two halakim that are near each other. The dinner, like we always say, the dinner de bar metzra, people are entitled. Someone who owns a property is entitled to, if someone sells the adjoining property, has to sell to him. There's a similar rule from Bechar that he's entitled to get two adjoining properties. Other brothers can say, we'll give you double, but we'll give you on two different ends of the field. What does Rabbi do with the pasuk that the Chaf do? Hushem Amar Eini Naitav Eini Nois in Rishai. This is coming to tell you the din that we had mentioned earlier, that if the Bechar wants to say, my father has so much debt, I'm not interested in being treated as a Bechar because I'm going to end up owing more money than I get, he can say, I'm only going to get a single chelik, and I'm not going to have to get a double chelik of his debts as well. Amar Papa. Dikla. So now we're going to get into what I said, that there's a continuum of different types of a spectrum of how connected this profit or the growth of the estate is to what was there originally. Rapapa says, and this is the way the Rashbam understands this is a commentary after we said this machlekes Rabbi and the Rabbanan was saying that, but they all agree on certain things. Rapapa Dikla va'alim. If there was a day tree that got stronger, it increased, it became better. Arav asik shirtin, or if you have land and dirt piled up, it was on the banks of a river, and the river brought in dirt, and it increased the size of the land. The kulam le pligi the shakel. Everyone will agree in these cases we already have the actual land or the actual palm tree was there, and it just increased in size. So this is not like the case that we said before of a para that gave birth. That's a new entity that came into being. So in that we could say there's a machlekes where the Rabbanan say the Bechar doesn't get pishnayim. But if it was organic, if it was part of what was there originally, and that increased, that certainly, even the Rabbanan would agree that the Bechar gets double on that. Because that's not a new thing that came into the estate. That's just the estate that was there increased. Kipli, where do they argue? Where there were plants that were planted, stalks, and then it became ears of grain. Shlufi v'havitamri, or blossoms that became dates. So these are things that weren't there, and then they came into being. They came naturally without any investment of time or effort. But since they're a new entity, on that we say that it came after the death of the father, and the Bechar does not get double on it. The Mar Shvacha, the Memela, Shvacha, the Memela, Mar Savar Ishtani. One man, the Amr says, since on that, Rebbe will say, since it came naturally, even though it's a new thing, Rebbe will still say the Bechar gets double in it. Mar Savar and the Rabbanan would say Ishtani. No, this is a new thing, it wasn't there before, and therefore the Bechar, that's what the pasuk is coming to tell you, that the Bechar does not get double. Don't think we're starting a new topic. This is still a continuation. Sometimes the two doubts can be deceptive. Amar Rabba Bachan Amar Reb Chia. Also Kedivrei Rebbe Asa. Kedivrei Chachamim Asa. Whether you do if it comes a bunch of brothers come to the Rav and they say, our father's father died and he had a cow and it gave birth. And there's 10 brothers, and this brother who's the Bukhara says they want to get double. Whether you do, so Ruchiyah says, whether you do like Rebbe and you give the Bukhara double, or if you do like the Chum and the Rabbana, you don't give him double. Either way, the ruling of the Rav stands. Why? We know the halacha is like Rebbe in a machlekes halacha, but the question is, how far does that go? Does it go like Rebbe as opposed to any individual chaver of his, but not when it's the Rabbanon, not when it's everyone disagrees with him? Or do we pass on like Rebbe, even keneged the everyone else? So in this case, it's Rebbe keneged the Rabbanon. So it's a suffix of whether we pass on like him, and therefore, if someone paskins one way or the other, either way it will stand. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav, also lasses kedivei Rebbe. Rav Nachman says no, you cannot do like Rebbe. He holds that the conclusion is that we only follow Rebbe when he's opposed by a single chaver, but not a group. Rav Nachman Lidei Amar, that was Rav Nachman said b'shem Rav. Rav Nachman himself disagrees with Rav. Mutter lasses kedivei Rebbe. He says you can do like Rebbe because of Allah Rebbe mechaberei va'afilu mechaberei. So even this is like a little bit of squish language. He says mutter lasses. He doesn't say we paskin definitively like Rebbe, but he says one can, which is very similar to the first pshat we said. You can do either way. Amar Rava, also lasses kedivei Rebbe. Rava says, what's this aleph? Amar Rava. Hilchas Rebbe, or asalas kedivei Rebbe, bim asa asi, and if you did so, it's done. Chasava mate, he holds that one should not do like Rebbe. I think that's the way the Gemara seems to understand it, the lashon that we have in the Gemara. But if you do so, that means the halacha is mata. It doesn't mean that we are definitively paskin like Rebbe and you can't paskin against him, but we are mata to do like the Rabbanan. But if one does the other way, it can stand. Itmar, Tani Rav Nachman, B'shar Sifrei Debei Rav. Rav Nachman had these collection of svarim. It says, B'chol Asher Yimatzalai, Prat Lo Shvach Sheshvichu Yarsham La'achar Bisaviyah. That's coming to exclude that which the estate increased in value because of the efforts of the Yarsher. Like we said before, that everyone agreed that if the estate went up in value, but it required effort, if they bought Apple stock with the money, or I don't know if that's the best example, or if they built an apartment building with the estate, and now it's worth twice as much, that you don't say the Bechor gets double, because they invested their effort into it. But if the nechasim themselves increased in value, or that's not really they increased in value, but for example, the example of where it gave birth without any investment of time or effort or money by the other Yarshim, then shakel, then the Bechar gets double. Umani, Rebbe. So according to this which Rav Nachman brings, this Shar Sifrei Debei Rav, is saying Rebbe Shita, right? Rebbe said that he made this chiluk that it depends on whether it's the effort of the other Yisayimim or if it came naturally. If it came naturally, then the Bechar gets double. Tani Rav Mecham b'Shar Sifrei Debei Rav. Rav Mecham has a different version of this Sifrei Debei Rav. He says that's coming to exclude the shvach that came even naturally, that the Bechar doesn't get that. Certainly that which came about by the efforts of the Yarsha. According to this version, the Shah Debei Rav is saying the sheet of the Rabban. Amar Rav Yudah Mishmuk. Ein Bechar noitel pishnayim b'milva. a Bechar does not get, and we're going to talk about now a milva, where there was a loan owed. They have as we're going to see, it's a star that says money is owed to the father. We say the Bechar does not get double from that. Lama. If you say this is going point to the Rabbanan, who say that's something that comes in the Meila, the Bechar does not get Pishnayim.
Is this the same as what we said before? Yarshush Chayv, the Rebbe said you do take?
Well, we're about to try to say how this goes with, we're going to see who is this going like. Is it like Rabbi or like the Rabbanan? The Gemara is just now about to say that. Laman, Ilay Mil Rabbanan, Hashta Shvacha the Isa Bershuse, Amr Rabbanan Leishakal, Milva Mibaya. What do you have to say? Obviously, a milva where it's now in someone else's hand at the time of the father's death, and there's an if you say that a prophet, meaning like a Vlad, that's already part of, you have the animal in the estate and it gave birth. But the animal, the mother was always in your estate. The Rabbanan say that the Bechar doesn't get Pishnayim. Certainly a milva, a right to collect money from someone else, is more attenuated. It's not in your Rishus. So Elamai, you're going to say El Rebbe. El Hadatanya Yarshu Shtar Chayv Bechar Neitel Pishnayim Bein B'Milva Bein B'Ribis, money. If you're going to say that, we have a brisa that says if someone yarshin the shtar chayiv, and that's what you were just quoting before, and the continuation is bein b'milva bein b'shtar. If someone has a shtar chayiv, you get double. The bechar gets double, whether it's in the actual loan or in the ribis. Both of them he gets double. Money. So now this is going to be loy Rabbi. If you're saying Rabbi is saying that a milva, if this quote that was saying that a milva, a bechar doesn't get pishnayim, we say it can't be the Rabbanan because that's pashat. It wouldn't be necessary to say it. Elamai is saying Rabbi is mechalik between a milva and a shtar and a vlad. I'm sorry, but if that's the case, who is this Manda Amr who says that you do get from a milva? It can't be either Rabbanan or Rebbe. No. We have to go back. That which we said, that has to be going according to the Rabban. We asked before, so we said before, what is it necessary to tell us that a milva goes to the Bechar? That doesn't go to the Bechar. Certainly the Rabbanan, if they hold that a Vlad doesn't go to the Bechar, certainly a milva won't go to the Bechar. It's necessary. Milva, kiven the naket shtara, command the gavyadami. We've had this many times, this concept that when you have a star, it's as if it's already been taken from the person who owes it. A star is a very strong, it's more than a raya. It's not just evidence. It's as if it's almost like cash, right? A bearer bonds, that's what everyone wants to steal a bearer bond. You have a bearer bond that's like cash. If you have, now cash is cash, but the star is the closest thing. It's even closer than a vlad. A vlad is something that grew that wasn't in existence. But having a star is as if you already have the money that is owed by that star.
The point to Rabbanan, we know the halacha regarding a vlad, and there's a chiddush with milva because it's be'in, kilo.
Right. One might say that a milva
more than a
would
vlad?
Be more than a vlad. That's what we're saying. We're saying that a star is such a strong kesher to it that one might have thought that the Rabbanan would say it's stronger.
I don't know.
It's very strange because Gemara comes first from a Hava Amina. Once you say Vlad, of course the milva because it's someone else's hand, and then it's really going to the other direction. Let's see the Rashi. Lo'ilam ali b'derban v'achtetani yarshish tar chayiv Rebbe b'milva shel avi chum. Well, avaloi b'ribis. No, I'm sorry. That's I don't know. I don't even remember seeing this Rashi, this Rashbam. Okay, that's weiter. So I guess it doesn't really explain this. But anyway, that's the Svar. Kamashmala. Sholchu mitom. They sent from Eretz Yisrael. B'chor noitel pishnayim b'milva avaloi b'ribis. This is another brisa that is different from what we just said. Before we said b'chor noitel pishnayim bein b'milva bein b'ribis, and we had understood that was Rabbi, and the original brisa that says eina b'chor noitel pishnayim b'milva, that was the Rabbanon. Now we have a brisa, a third brisa that says that it's only b'milva avalebris laman. Ilem l'Rabbanon. If we say the Rabbanon hasha shvachal isa b'shusay amri Rabbanon lo yishakal milva mibayim, we said, and lamaisa we just had proven in the previous Gemara that Eina Chanami, they say that the din is even by a milva. It's a little strange the way the Gemara sets it up. Really, you should have said it. We just concluded that the Kamash Malon, that the Rabbanan say by a milva, but it's sort of like working through it, saying starting from the beginning again of that cheshbon. Ella, the Rabbi b'Rebbis loy, v'atanya Rabbi I'm b'charnet b'shnayim bein b'milva bein b'Rebbis. We had just concluded that Rabbi was the Manda Amar of the previous brisa that says that both milva and Rebbis are going to get pishnayim for the b'char. So at the Merlo Rabbani. No, we're going to say it's the Rabban. Milva kaman the Gavi Damya. Eina Chanami. This is a shita of the Rabbanan. And this shita is saying that the milva is kaman the Gavi Damya. Eina Chanami, not like we had said Kamash Malon. This is a brisa that's chaylik and says that it is kaman the Gavi Damya. Amalei Rav Acha Barav.
Then why would Rabbi? So who's the one that says this?
So we have two different versions of that last of the sheet of the Rabbanan. One sheet is that they say by a milva.
I know, either with Rebbis or without Rebbis.
Right. No, the other way around. They both
say that
Rebbis loy. Right?
No.
I'm sorry, Beim Law. So so we're trying to figure out who that is.
Right.
So we're coming out now that that's
Rabbanon.
That's the Rabban.
And previously we came out those Rabbanon also.
Well, before we just about the milva.
Right.
About the milva. Before we said Eina Noitel Pishnayim, we said was the Rabban.
I'm asking this. Interesting that we come out to point to both of them. That's the Rabbanon. But with milva, why did command the Gavi late?
One time was saying command the Gavi. The other was saying Kamash Malon, that even though it's command the Gavia, it's still not going to be Noitel Pishnayim. They're being chaylik on that, whether you say Kamash Malon, like we said before. There's a different version of the sheet of the Rabbanan. But we're adding on the Ribbis, but not Ribbis. Because we know that Rebbe is the Mandamu who says yes on Ribbis.
Got it.
Right, Ribbis is something that is added on. It's not represented by Karka. No, because
Rebbe would say that you do talk.
Rebbe comes out that even Ribbis is considered to be part of the estate, even though it's less effectuated by the shtar. It's not even a legal shtar. He's not allowed to do it, and he doesn't have a mashkin. So part of the cheshbon of why we would say it's command the Gavi Dami is because we treat it as if there's a mashkin on it. And once someone is holding a mashkin, everyone agrees, let's say the estate has a collateral in its hand, that everyone agrees that the Bechor gets double from that mashkin. So when we say that there's a milva, b'shtar, the Bechor gets shnayim, that's because he doesn't have a mashkin, but the Ribbis, there's no mashkin on that. Okay.
This is Ribbis as mutter.
No, I don't know. Avlibris, Avavisha Kosa Bishtar, Milva Command the Gavidami, Helva Nokashtar, Avon Ribis, Avagav the Nokashtar, for over as man, Mishames Avav, Lloyd, the Elcha Roy, the Dover Shalom, Shalom, Island. Avon Moish, Malva, the Gashaka Mois, Avev, Nimsa Star, Muxuk Biyad, if Maka Mois, become my mashka. Without Kamoid in the Milvish and Niach Mashka, last Chaka Pishnan, that kind of. So, it's not talking about the legality of the ribis. The point is that there's no collateral that's considered, a shtar is considered as if you have collateral already, but that doesn't apply to the ribis. I don't know if we're talking about a ribis that's allowed or not. I didn't really think about that. So saying this Shalchim Mitam is arguing Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel about what the sheet of the Rabbanan is. What he had a different version.
The first version says that Kamashman that we Rabbanan don't hold like that. We switch it. You would have a Havamina to say that might maybe maybe that you would say that's considered in.
Consider if you have a mash.
We would say it's not the Chiddush. We said no, it is a Chiddush because no. The next verse says no.
Okay, I think we're going to stop here.